What Randonautica led them to will haunt you forever. Welcome to DTC, the place of the brave, where we explore the eerie and unsettling side of life. In today's video, we delve into the dark and mysterious world of Randonautica, an app that takes you to random locations based on your intentions. While some users find it a fun adventure, others have encountered terrifying experiences that will leave you questioning the app's true power. From unsettling encounters to bizarre and unexplained phenomena, these 4 horrifying things will make you think twice before using Randonautica. Stay tuned and prepare for a journey into the unknown. Story 1. He-Chilling Tale of David. Randonautica's Horrifying Secrets. Have you ever stepped into something so chilling, so inexplicably terrifying that it felt like there was no way out? My name is David, and what I'm about to share with you is not just a story, it's a warning. It all began on a warm August evening in 2023 when my best friend and I decided to experiment with the infamous app Randonautica. You probably heard about it. A tool that supposedly sends you to random locations tied to your intentions. We thought it was just a fun way to kill time, an adventure to break the monotony. But what we found was far beyond anything we could have imagined. The app led us to a dense forest on the outskirts of the city. As the sun dipped below the horizon, we parked our car and ventured into the shadows. The forest was eerily quiet, save for the crunching of leaves beneath our feet and the distant hum of insects. The air grew colder, heavier, and every step we took felt like we were being watched by unseen eyes. The app's pin led us to a large, ancient tree standing in a clearing. At first glance, it seemed like an ordinary spot, but as we got closer, my heart sank. Attached to the tree was a piece of paper, yellowed and crinkled, dangling from a string. It swayed gently in the breeze, almost beckoning us to come closer. The message scrawled on it was barely legible, written in shaky, uneven handwriting. If you want to know the truth, leave your phone number here. Beneath the note was a sight that made my stomach churn. Scattered around the base of the tree were items that didn't belong in the middle of a forest. Women's undergarments, used condoms, charred scraps of paper, and what looked like burnt personal belongings. The smell of something acrid and metallic lingered in the air, a scent that made my skin crawl. "Just a prank," my friend said, his voice shaky but laced with curiosity. He dared me to jot down my number. Against my better judgment and driven by a mix of bravado and foolish curiosity, I did it. I took out my phone, typed my number into the app, and hit send. As we made our way back to the car, I couldn't shake the feeling of being followed. Every rustle of leaves felt too close, every shadow too thick. My friend tried to laugh it off, saying we'd probably just get spammed with prank calls, but deep down I knew something was wrong. As we drove away, I glanced back at the clearing. For a split second, I thought I saw something, or someone, standing by the tree, watching us. That night, at exactly 11:13 p.m., my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "David, don't go back there. We know who you are." My blood ran cold. The use of my name felt like a punch to the gut. I hadn't provided it anywhere, only my number. My friend's face went pale when I showed him the message. He suggested we block the number and forget about it. I agreed, but deep down I couldn't shake the feeling that we'd crossed a line we were never meant to. The next day, more texts came, each more unsettling than the last. "You've been chosen. The answers are waiting for you. We see you." One message included a photo, a picture of my house, taken from an angle that could only have been shot from my front yard. My heart pounded as I locked all the doors and windows, but no amount of security could ease the gnawing dread. That night, I barely slept. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the wind outside felt amplified. Around 3 a.m. I heard it, the sound of footsteps on gravel, slow and deliberate, right outside my bedroom window. Gathering every ounce of courage, I peeked through the curtains. Under the faint glow of the streetlight stood a shadowy figure, motionless, its face obscured. It didn't move, didn't make a sound, just stood there, as if waiting for me to acknowledge it. Then, without warning, the streetlight flickered and went out. When it came back on, the figure was gone. Over the next few days, the situation escalated. Strange things began happening around my home. Lights flickered inexplicably. Objects moved from where I had left them. One morning, I woke up to find a burnt scrap of paper on my doorstep with the same shaky handwriting as the note in the forest. "You shouldn't have ignored us." My friend, now as terrified as I was, decided to investigate further. He suggested we return to the forest to see if there were any clues we'd missed. Reluctantly, I agreed. Armed with flashlights and pepper spray, we retraced our steps. The tree was still there, but the note was gone. The clearing felt different, darker, colder, as if the forest itself was alive and angry at our intrusion. Suddenly we heard it, a soft, guttural whispering coming from all around us. The words were indistinct but filled with malice. And then we saw them. Eyes, dozens of glowing eyes peering at us from the darkness surrounding the clearing. They weren't human. The shadows moved closer, and the whispering grew louder, transforming into an unholy cacophony. We ran, stumbling and gasping for air, not daring to look back. I deleted the app, changed my phone number, and even moved to a new town. But the terror followed me. Occasionally, I still received texts from unknown numbers, messages like, "You can't escape. It's not over." One night, I woke up to find a figure standing at the foot of my bed. It didn't move, didn't speak. It simply stared with hollow, empty eyes before vanishing as abruptly as it appeared. I share this story not to entertain you, but to warn you. Randonautica is not just a harmless app. It's a door to places and things that should remain undiscovered. If you ever feel tempted to try it, remember my story. Ask yourself, are you ready to face what might be waiting on the other side? Because once you step through that door, there's no turning back. Do you dare to listen to the dark? If tonight's tale gave you chills, let us know your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear what creeps you out and what other stories you'd love us to explore. Don't miss out on the next terrifying story. Subscribe to DDC, The Place of the Brave, and join the family that thrives on the unknown. Tap the notification bell so you're the first to hear every spine-chilling tale. Share this video with someone brave enough to face the darkness, and let's dive deeper into the creeps that haunt our world. Comment below and become part of the terror. The darkness is calling, and we want you with us. Story 2, Horrifying Encounter, a Randonautica Journey into the Unknown. I was just like anyone else, curious, adventurous, and open to the possibility of discovering something unusual. My name is Taylor Vasquez, and like so many, I was lured in by the hype surrounding Randonautica, an app designed to take you to random locations. The concept intrigued me, offering a sense of mystery and excitement. Little did I know that decision would lead me into an experience I would never forget, a terrifying journey that felt like it came straight out of a creepypasta. It all started on a quiet evening. I had just downloaded the app, not really expecting anything out of the ordinary. I mean, who would, right? The app gave me a set of coordinates, and without much thought, I decided to follow them. The location took me to a secluded wooded area on the outskirts of my neighborhood, far enough to feel isolated, but not so far that I felt unsafe. I parked my car at the edge of the road and walked in, intrigued by the possibility of finding something interesting, or maybe even just enjoying a peaceful walk in nature. But as I ventured deeper into the woods, something felt off. There was an eerie stillness in the air, as though the forest itself was holding its breath. I kept walking, ignoring the creeping feeling in the back of my mind that something wasn't quite right. After about 20 minutes of walking, I stumbled upon something strange. Drawings on the trees and the ground. They were crude, unsettling, like the kind of drawings a child might make when they're bored or scared. The most disturbing of these was a simple message scratched into the bark of a tree. Play with me. At first I thought it was just some kids messing around, but then I heard it. Voices, faint but unmistakable. Children's laughter, soft at first, then growing louder as though they were playing nearby. I spun around, heart racing, but saw nothing. Just the trees and shadows, stretching unnaturally under the dimming sky. It was as though the laughter wasn't just in my ears, but in the very air around me, wrapping around my thoughts. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. I left quickly that day, shaken by the eerie atmosphere and the odd messages I'd found. But, being the curious person I am, I returned the next day. The same spot, the same unsettling feeling. And this time something had changed. A cardboard Ouija board lay on the ground, discarded and torn at the edges. It didn't make sense. Why would someone leave this here, in the middle of nowhere? And why was it accompanied by a large, rusty knife? My pulse quickened as I bent down to inspect the board. There was a chilling coldness about it, as if the object had been left there for far longer than I could have imagined. I took out my phone to film it, the fear slowly starting to creep in. As I was recording, I noticed something even more disturbing. On the knife's handle were fresh fingerprints. They were smudged, almost as if someone had just touched it. And then the laughter again, this time closer, too close. My heart pounded in my chest as I spun around, expecting to see a group of kids playing tricks, but once again the forest stood silent, watching. I took a few steps back, instinct telling me to leave, but curiosity held me in place. That was my mistake. I looked down at my phone, the video still recording. My hand was trembling as I panned the camera over the area once more. In the distance, just past the edge of the woods, I saw something. Someone. A figure standing motionless, almost blending into the shadows. I couldn't make out any details, but the way it stood unnaturally still sent a wave of panic through me. My breath caught in my throat, and I couldn't shake the feeling that it was staring at me. I quickly left again, but the unease stayed with me. For days, I couldn't get the images out of my mind, the laughter, the Ouija board, the knife. But there was something worse than that. The feeling that I wasn't alone in the forest, that something was following me, lingering just out of sight. Despite my fear, I went back once more, hoping to find answers or at least put my mind at ease. But this time, everything was different. When I arrived, the area was darker, colder. The air was thick, like something was pressing down on me. I walked to the spot where I'd found the Ouija board and the knife, but when I got there, nothing was as I remembered. The board was gone, and the knife was nowhere to be seen. But there was something new. As I was scanning the area, I saw a faint outline in the dirt, footprints leading deeper into the forest. They were fresh, too fresh. And they weren't human. The shape was wrong. It was larger, broader, like the print of something that wasn't supposed to exist in the woods. My pulse raced as I followed them, despite every nerve in my body screaming at me to turn back. The trail led me to a small clearing, and there, standing in the center, was a makeshift altar. It was bizarre, twisted, and made from objects I couldn't understand. Broken mirrors, animal bones, and what looked like pieces of clothing. The ground around the altar was smeared with something dark like dried blood. I couldn't look away. As I stood there, horrified, I felt something behind me. The unmistakable presence of something or someone close by. I spun around, but no one was there. The forest was silent again, too silent, but the air felt heavier now, as if something had changed. A distant screech echoed through the trees, sending a chill down my spine. The laughter, that same eerie laughter, filled my ears once more, but this time it was accompanied by whispers, soft, unintelligible voices. I ran. I ran like I'd never run before, the terror of knowing that whatever was in that forest, whatever was tied to Randonautica, had been waiting for me. I didn't look back, not until I reached the safety of my car, but even then I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind raced with thoughts of the Ouija board, the knife, the altar, and the whispers that followed me home. Had it all been a sick joke, or was it something darker? And the laughter, was it real, or had I been imagining it? There was only one way to find out. I uploaded the footage to my social media, hoping that someone could explain what had happened to me. I didn't expect it to go viral. The video was shared thousands of times, and the comments poured in. Some people were skeptical, others terrified, but there were a few that gave me a chilling answer. They said it was a haunting, something that followed those who used Randonautica, that the app wasn't just random, but guided by something far older and darker. They said the app wasn't just for fun. It was a door to something waiting to be unleashed. I don't know what to believe anymore, but I know this. I'll never go back to those woods, and I'll never use Randonautica again, because once you open the door, there's no guarantee you can close it. Was it just a sick prank, or something far worse? I'm not sure I want to find out, but whatever it was, it's still out there, watching, waiting, just like it was when I first entered. Do you dare to listen to the dark? If tonight's tale gave you chills, let us know your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear what creeps you out and what other stories you'd love us to explore. Don't miss out on the next terrifying story. Subscribe to DTC, The Place of the Brave, and join the family that thrives on the unknown. Tap the notification bell so you're the first to hear every spine-chilling tale. Share this video with someone brave enough to face the darkness, and let's dive deeper into the creeps that haunt our world. Comment below and become part of the terror. The darkness is calling, and we want you with us. Story 3. The Creeping Shadows of Owl's Hollow Road. It was supposed to be a night of fun. Something simple, something easy. Just a group of friends hanging out, trying something new, something that felt like it was born straight out of a late-night Reddit thread. We were curious, reckless, and maybe a little too eager to dive into the unknown. That's when we opened the Randonautica app. I'm Davey, the one who always pushes for adventure, for the thrill of the unknown. My friends and I were just looking for something to break the monotony of a regular Friday night. The app led us to Owl's Hollow Road, a name that should have sent us running the other way, but we laughed it off. Nothing could have prepared us for what we were about to encounter. We set out just after dusk, with only the fading light of the sun to guide our way. The road felt strange from the moment we stepped onto it. The air was thick, colder than it should have been for a spring evening. The trees on either side seemed to lean in closer, as if they were whispering secrets to each other. And there in the distance I saw him, a figure standing still at the edge of the road. His silhouette was hard to make out in the dim light, but his tall frame and the hood he wore made him look almost like a ghost. I couldn't shake the feeling that he was watching us, waiting for something. "Hey Davey, what's that?" My friend Emily's voice cut through the silence. She was always the cautious one, the first to question every decision. Her words made me feel uneasy, as though my instincts were too late. I had seen the man, but I couldn't look away. It was as if something held me there, paralyzed by the sight of him. We stood frozen for what felt like hours, watching him, yet he never moved. The sound of the wind swirled around us, the only thing breaking the stillness. Then, without warning, the figure slowly turned and disappeared into the thick shadows of the trees. "Let's go now," Emily urged, pulling at my sleeve. But I couldn't move. I was too stunned, too caught up in the moment. There was something wrong about that man. something that didn't fit, didn't belong. When we finally managed to tear ourselves away and get back in the car, the air in the vehicle felt thick and suffocating. The temperature had dropped even further, and my breath came out in visible clouds. I glanced at the others. We were all silent, but I could see the same unease in their eyes. The next day, we decided to return, thinking it was just some weird coincidence, a trick of the light. But when we got back to Owl's Hollow Road in broad daylight, the feeling was no less eerie. The trees were still leaning, casting long shadows that stretched across the path, making it feel like the entire road was alive, watching. We followed the same path as last night, only this time we were looking for answers. But all we found was something worse. Just off the road, we discovered a clearing, an abandoned dumping ground. The remains of old furniture, broken bottles, and random discarded trash scattered the ground. But what caught my eye, and what made my skin crawl, were the mattresses. They were lined up in neat rows, their surfaces clean, almost disturbingly so, as if they had been recently washed. It didn't make sense. Who would clean trash like this? It felt deliberate. I stepped closer, inspecting one of the mattresses, and that's when I noticed something else. There was a faint, metallic scent in the air, one I couldn't place. It was like the smell of blood, but not fresh, more like something that had been washed off. Is anyone else getting a bad feeling about this? Emily's voice shook as she stood behind me, her eyes darting around the area, scanning the trees. Before I could answer, I saw something strange, a large dark object half buried in the ground. It was a cooler, but not like any cooler I'd ever seen. It was made from thick black fabric, not metal or plastic. As we approached it, I felt a chill creep up my spine. Something was off about it. When we finally opened it, the smell hit us, a rancid, sour stench that made me gag. Inside the cooler was a pile of what appeared to be clothing. But they weren't just any clothes. These were covered in dirt, and some of them had strange stains that I couldn't identify. I could feel my stomach turn as I realized that whatever had been in the cooler had been left there with a purpose. "We need to get out of here," I said, my voice barely a whisper. The others agreed immediately, but as we turned to leave, something caught my eye. A figure watching us from the edge of the trees. It was him again, the same man from last night, but this time his face was visible. His eyes were wide, almost too wide, and there was a twisted smile on his lips. He didn't move, just stood there, his figure dark against the sun. I could feel his eyes burning into me, like he knew something about me, about us, that we didn't. The worst part? I could hear him laughing, but not like a normal laugh. It was low, guttural, and the sound of it seemed to echo from all directions. It wasn't just in the air, it was inside my head. I didn't look back after that. We ran, full speed, back to the car, and we didn't stop until we were miles away. But even then, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was following us, lingering just out of sight, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. That night, I couldn't sleep. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. A message from an unknown number. I hesitated, my heart pounding. When I opened it, all it said was, "I'm still watching." I slammed the phone shut, but that message, that cold, unsettling message, stayed with me. The next day, I tried to brush it off, but every time I looked outside, every time I stepped out of my house, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was there, watching, waiting. And then the dreams started. At first they were subtle, glimpses of the man in the hood, watching from the shadows. But then they grew worse. The dreams became more vivid, more real. In them I was back on Owl's Hollow Road, walking alone, unable to escape. The trees were closing in, the shadows were swallowing me whole, and I could hear the man's laugh, louder now, echoing from the trees. I tried to ignore it, to move on, but every time I thought I was free, something would remind me of that night, something that made me believe that we had never really left Owl's Hollow Road. The man, the trees, the cooler, All of it had followed us back. There are things in this world that should remain unknown, places that should never be visited, and names that should never be spoken aloud. But now I know that the more we ignore the signs, the more we push them away, the harder they'll come back for us. If you ever find yourself on Owl's Hollow Road, don't be curious. Don't open the app. Don't take the path that seems too easy, because if you do, you might never leave. Do you dare to listen to the dark? If tonight's tale gave you chills, let us know your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear what creeps you out and what other stories you'd love us to explore. Don't miss out on the next terrifying story. Subscribe to DTC, The Place of the Brave, and join the family that thrives on the unknown. Tap the notification bell so you're the first to hear every spine-chilling tale. Share this video with someone brave enough to face the darkness, and let's dive deeper into the creeps that haunt our world. Comment below and become part of the terror. The darkness is calling, and we want you with us. Story 4. The Haunting Discovery at Alki Beach, a Randonautica Nightmare. It was supposed to be an ordinary day, one filled with curiosity, excitement, and a little adventure. My friends and I had just downloaded Randonautica, this quirky app that promised to take us to random, unexplored locations based on our intentions. We were a group of thrill seekers, all of us in our late teens, eager to test out the app and see what it could uncover. Alki Beach in Seattle seemed like the perfect starting point, an area full of scenic views and endless possibilities. As we stood on the beach, staring at the app's interface, we set our intention. Something mysterious. The app buzzed, the screen flickered, and then it directed us toward a specific point, just off the beaten path, behind a small, dilapidated shack near the water. We were curious. Little did we know that this small decision would lead us down a dark, twisted road, one we would never forget. We made our way through the overgrown grass and damp sand, the salty sea air mingling with the eerie chill that had started to settle around us. The sun was beginning to dip below the horizon, casting long, ghostly shadows across the beach. We laughed nervously, joking about what we might find, but none of us were prepared for what lay ahead. There it was, an old black suitcase half buried in the sand. The scent that wafted from it hit us almost immediately, a rancid, sickening stench that made our stomachs turn. I could feel my heart begin to race as we all approached it cautiously. What was inside? Why was it here? I stepped forward first, my curiosity outweighing my fear. My hands trembled as I tried to unclip the rusty latches. The other guys were silent, their eyes wide as they stared at the suitcase. I don't think any of us were truly prepared for what we were about to uncover. With a final click, I opened the case. My breath caught in my throat. Inside was a large, black trash bag, but something about the shape of it, too human, too wrong, immediately sent a shiver down my spine. The smell intensified, making my stomach churn, and I almost gagged. The others stepped forward, now more hesitant, but all of us stared at the bag in stunned silence. I couldn't take my eyes off it. I had this overwhelming urge to reach inside, to confirm what I was too terrified to admit. As my hand hovered over the bag, I finally found the courage to peel it open, and what I saw still haunts me to this day. Inside the bag were the remains of 2 bodies, mangled, disfigured, and gruesome. It was obvious they had been dead for some time, the flesh pale and decaying. The most disturbing part was the way they had been positioned, arranged almost carefully as if to send a message. Their faces were barely recognizable, and my mind struggled to comprehend the sight before me. I could hear the others behind me, gasping in horror, one of them already vomiting into the sand. We were frozen in place for what felt like an eternity, the reality of what we'd just found sinking in. My hands were shaking, my pulse hammering in my ears. Who were they? What had happened to them? As I fumbled for my phone, trying to call the authorities, my mind raced with questions I couldn't answer. I barely heard one of my friends muttering in disbelief, "What if this is the work of that guy, Michael Dudley?" The name hit me like a ton of bricks. Michael Dudley was a local man, infamous for his shady business dealings. I had heard rumors about him in the past, whispers of debts owed, people who disappeared without a trace. I'd never thought it was anything more than local gossip, but standing there, staring at the remains of these two bodies, it suddenly all made sense. The app had led us here for a reason, and now we were wrapped up in something far darker than we could have imagined. It wasn't until later, when the police confirmed the identities of the victims, Jessica Lewis, a 35-year-old woman, and Austin Wenner, a 27-year-old man, that we learned the full extent of the horror. According to the reports, both had been murdered by Michael Dudley over a petty dispute regarding rent money. Dudley, in a rage, had killed them both, and somehow the bodies had ended up on that beach, waiting for us to find them. But that wasn't the worst part. As I reflect on the events that transpired that night, I realize that Randonautica may have been more than just an innocent app leading us to random locations. It felt like fate, or something darker, was guiding us to this particular spot. What if it wasn't a coincidence? What if there was something or someone controlling the directions, pushing us toward the darkest corner of the world? We may never know the truth. We may never know the truth. The fear and the shock from that night stayed with me long after the police left and the sun had risen. We tried to go back to our normal lives, but it was impossible to forget what we had seen. And as we left Alki Beach that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that we hadn't just stumbled across a gruesome murder scene. Something had been watching us, guiding us. Maybe it was Randonautica, maybe it was something else. But one thing was clear. We had no idea what we were truly getting into when we opened that suitcase. And that thought still lingers in my mind every time I close my eyes, wondering if I made the mistake of opening a door to something far more sinister than we could ever comprehend. As the darkness deepens and the stories grow more unsettling, we venture deeper into the unknown together. Each chilling tale brings us closer to the eerie truths lurking just beyond the veil of reality. The terror doesn't stop here, it only gets worse. Subscribe to DTC, The Place of the Brave S now, and stay on the edge of your seat. You won't want to miss what's lurking in the shadows next. Hit that notification bell and prepare for the next terrifying chapter. Remember, in the world of DTC, the place of the brave are always waiting, and they never rest.